Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. I love it when we get together with people that have interesting backgrounds and dedicate their lives to making life better for others. And this gentleman has done just that. He's made real estate his life's work. And what a fabulous job to have, and that he does, because he's helping people change and or start new lives, specifically in New Orleans. He is the broker and co-owner at Witry Collection Real Estate. He's our Diamond of the Decade, and so wonderful to talk with Brett A. Rector on the program. Hey, Brett, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm fantastic and thoroughly enjoying looking on the website of the properties that you have available in your area. I know that New Orleans has a lot of charm, a lot of French rich history. Gotta tell you though, I've never looked at real estate and looking at the architecture, the colors. I'm loving it. Is this what gravitated you here to do what you're doing?
Yes, I think that was a big part of it. I love the history of this city, and because our city is, so very, very old. It's over 300 years old. We have such a wide range of architectural styles, starting in the 1800s. The French Quarter, had a fire that destroyed a lot of it, and very early on, and then it was rebuilt. And so you have some Spanish influences, you have some French influences. Back in those days, in the early 1800s, really the only dry land here was what was closest to the river. And so that's where you've got your most historic buildings and homes and so on and so forth. And they kind of run the gamut of architectural styles, from Victorian to, Greek Revival, to East Lake inspired Victorian, to arts and crafts era. And then as the city was able to grow and they drained areas with swamps and so on and so forth and developed that land, then you got influences from Mediterranean and raised basements homes. So we have such a unique architectural history, as well as just a unique history at large, that was a big part of my decision and my desire to make New Orleans my home, which I did in 2005, but also the culture and the community. The warmth of the people of New Orleans is unsurpassed. And I've lived a lot of places around the country. I grew up in the Midwest, lived in California, lived in South Florida. There really is nothing like the warm, welcoming nature of the people of New Orleans.
So, and I want to get into the properties and a little bit of detail on real estate in general, but let's talk about how you got here. Now, this actually started for you with a career in hospitality, right?
Correct.
Tell us more.
I was living in Los Angeles at that time. I moved to Los Angeles from Chicago in 1991. I worked for a Japanese gentleman who's one of the largest restaurateurs in Tokyo and was starting a U.S. company. So I was one of the opening members of the opening management staff, and then later moved into more of an administrative financial role. And at the end of a 12-year run with that company, I just felt like it was time for me to make a change. And, like I said, I've lived a number of places, and New Orleans was just one of the few cities that I really wanted to, consider as my new home. So I started coming here. A friend of mine in real estate in Los Angeles hooked me up with an agent in New Orleans who was legendary in the city. So I started coming here looking for a home with her in probably 2002, and her name was Martha Ann Samuel. And going out with Martha Ann, she had been in the industry here for many years. She was one of the, like I said, she was a legend. She was one of the most respected, most visible real estate agents who had her own company at one time in this city. And going out with her and going to look at property for myself, or going out to view properties that were listed by other agents. There's a thing called Broker Tour, which happens in the Uptown area on Wednesdays. We'd go out to visit these grand mansions, and it was like a rolling history lesson for me. And history has always been rather fascinating for me. So that was another thing that really drew me here, was just the opportunities that presented to be able to work in a city with such a unique history and such a unique, a huge variety of architectural styles. I ended up relocating briefly to Fort Lauderdale. Just couldn't find a house in New Orleans. The timing wasn't right. And so I went to Fort Lauderdale, and I stayed in the hospitality industry briefly there. But Martha Ann had been saying to me, Brett, you would be a really good real estate agent. And so I decided to explore that as an option. So I went to real estate school in in Fort Lauderdale, and I got my license there initially. And then ended up, continuing to come back and forth from Fort Lauderdale to New Orleans, meeting with Martha Ann, looking at houses, and finally found a home in the spring of 2005, and then moved here at the beginning of summer in 2005, in July of 2005.
Wow. Brett, it really sounds like you truly enjoy what you do.
I love what I do. It's I think one of the components that I enjoy is obviously the big thing is helping people realize and achieve their real estate dreams and goals. Whether they're looking to sell their family home because the parents have passed away and the children don't live here, or your first-time home buyer who's never done this before. And New Orleans is a unique city with unique history and unique architecture, and so there's a very large learning curve for people shopping here, particularly people from other places. And having the knowledge to share with people as they go through the home buying process, and being able to give them advice and guidance and insights, and explain the unique characteristics that sometimes can sound very scary, that are just inherent to these houses that are 200 years old. So I love that component. And then, I also just love being able to sort of inspire other people to explore the industry as an option, a career choice, a career path for them.
I'm amazed at the prices. So I'm a suburb of New York City on Long Island. I'll call it an hour train ride into the city. And the prices of homes are way higher for the most part. Looking at some of these properties available, just wow. I want to move. I really do.
We get that a lot from people coming here from places on the East Coast, the Manhattan, New York City areas and surrounding areas, people from Boston,
sure,
people from D.C., and obviously the West Coast people as well. There was a big influx into the first neighborhood that I lived here, a historic neighborhood called Bywater. There was a very large influx, so probably about, I'd say, 5 to 7 years after I purchased my home there, of people coming here from the West Coast and from the East Coast. The New York Times referred to Bywater as Brooklyn South, and then all stops were off, all lights were green. Everybody was coming oh, I got to go check this out. And then we had a large influx from the West Coast, Los Angeles, because the film industry, we do a good amount of filming here. The Bay Area, just because, just what you said, you can get so much more for your home or for your money in terms of your house. Portland, we have a large influx of people from Portland and Seattle into Bywater as well. So it's kind of changed the makeup of that neighborhood, which when I moved there the population was largely a lot of creative people, musicians, artists, and so on and so forth. So, the dynamic of that neighborhood changed to some degree with the influx of new people, but it's still a very, very vibrant neighborhood. I still spend a lot of time in that neighborhood. There are businesses in that neighborhood that I absolutely love and always want to support. So, go out to dinner. My favorite pastry shop is in Bywater, and actually, that's just let me piggyback on that really quickly. Probably most of your listeners are familiar with the chantilly cake at Whole Foods, Whole Foods Market. Well, that cake was originated by the owner of my favorite pastry shop here in New Orleans. She was the pastry chef at Whole Foods, which started in New Orleans, and introduced that cake when she was there working in the pastry department. And then eventually, moved on and so on and so forth, and eventually opened her own bakery in Bywater. And so the originator of the chantilly cake that everybody around the country knows was started by Chaya Conrad, the owner of Bywater Bakery.
Wow. Had no idea. You guys are steeped in history. I want to look at some of the properties and kind of get a feel. So you can spend anywhere from the, mid 300s, 400s, which, and they're beautiful houses, but then you run the gamut. So there's a property on Washington Avenue that's going for $535, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, very small house, I might add. Then on the other side of the spectrum, you have a home on North Tonti, which is 1.2 mil, 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath. What makes these properties different, and where are they? Like that very small house on Washington Avenue. Is there some historic connection to that?
Well, it's in the heart of the Garden District.
Okay.
And the Garden District is one of the most desirable addresses in New Orleans. It's half a block off of Magazine Street, which is our, very vibrant commercial corridor, lots of locally owned businesses. Starbucks is across the street virtually. And that street is lined with, some pretty magnificent historic homes. And it's walking distance to world-famous Commander's Palace restaurant. So it's all about that location and the charm of that little cottage. That really is just a little Victorian cottage is what I would call it. It's across the street from a very grand home. My mentor actually lived in the next block over. So it's part of it. Like I said, it's a very desirable location and the history of the neighborhood.
So I'm looking at 106 Colony, $495K. I think that's charming, that house. Just a beautiful, now it's got some property there. Tell me about that one.
Now, that one I'm not familiar with.
Very brick, and the shutters are a sort of like a olive color.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just picking out properties, just learning about the the area. How about back to the one that's 1.2 million? Are you familiar with that one in North Tonti?
Oh yes. So that is what is classically known, or what is known as a raised center hall. It's in the Treme, which is the oldest established, I believe I'm correct in saying, the oldest established African-American neighborhood in the entire country. You go up this grand exterior staircase to this very large porch, and you walk into this very grand hallway, and then everything opens off that hallway on either side. Those center hall cottages are very, very desirable. And we call them cottages when they're really not.
No.
But it's a very, very desirable style of architecture. The gentleman who owns that house did a beautiful restoration on it. The location is a nice location. It's walking distance to the French Quarter. It is. Yeah.
Wow.
It's on a very large piece of property in terms of land. So it's got a lot of charm, a lot of history. So that it's a very desirable house.
Looks are deceiving because it doesn't look like it's on a huge piece of property. I'm only seeing it from the front. And to your point, when you walk up that grand staircase at the front of the house, the porch area, my God, you could spend your entire summer on that porch. It is huge.
Yes,
yes. Lovely.
And porches here are a very popular thing. People here, we call it stoop sitting or porch sitting, and we sit out on our porches and we get to talk to our neighbors and so on and so forth. So,
love it. I love that feel. I love that vibe. Every single property, I honestly feel like I'm on vacation walking down one of these charming streets. I want to get back into your history, Brett, for just a moment.
Sure.
We talked about your background. What is the biggest challenge you had to overcome?
I think that would definitely be the fact that I came here just a short time prior to the arrival of Hurricane Katrina and the subsequent failure of the levee system and the flooding of 80% of the metro area. And then in conjunction with that, I had come at the urging of Martha Ann and, to sort of be her protege, to have her mentor me and be my introduction into real estate. Because real estate is a unique business in the sense that, you're really running your own business. You may work for a big company, you may work for Compass or you may work for EXP, but you're still a self-employed person. And your business is largely of your own creation. The connections that you make, the marketing that you do of your skill sets, your listings, and so on and so forth. So I came here with that, with that kind of bonus of having Martha Ann being my mentor and having her be my introduction into the real estate world here in New Orleans. Well, Martha Ann ended up having a aortic aneurysm the Monday before Thanksgiving of 2005, so shortly after Katrina, and then passed away the night before Thanksgiving that year. So here I am in New Orleans where I virtually don't really know anybody. I mean, I casually knew a few people, from going into Martha Ann's office with her. But I had no real connections. I have no family here. I didn't have friends here, and so I'm sitting in a city that's been under, a big part of the inventory had water in. They don't teach you how to sell flooded houses in real estate schooling, just in case you need to know that. And I didn't know New Orleans that well in terms of, other than the neighborhoods where I had been looking at houses. So I had a lot to learn. And, fortunately, I guess in some ways, because the city had flooded, there weren't a lot of people here. There was debris everywhere, but I was, fairly brave and got my car and would go out driving and exploring and so on and so forth. You just had to be careful of debris, and you picked up a lot of nails in your tires and so on and so forth. So,
wow. I can't imagine, Brad. I can't imagine being... Here you are, you arrive in a whole new area. Actually, you were there. Then you went, at least you were looking around. Then you went to South Florida and then decided, I'm coming back. Here I am. And then an epic storm hits. And talk about being in the middle of the storm. The aftermath, years of healing for a city. I can't imagine what that was like for you and everybody else. Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot to navigate through. I mean, I was very, very fortunate. And again, Martha Ann's wisdom, the highest ground in the city is the ground closest to the river. As I said earlier, that was the part of the city that was developed, the first part of the city that was developed because that was the dry ground. And so Martha Ann kept insisting that I had to buy close to the river, and Bywater is, 4 blocks. My house was 4 blocks from the river. So I was very fortunate that my neighborhood did not flood. I had some wind damage, typical hurricane stuff, but I didn't have to go through what thousands of people went through here in the metro area with losing absolutely everything, having to completely rebuild my life. So I was able to come back to a house that was safe, secure, and dry. And that was I think that was really part of the inspiration for me to stay, because I had a dry house. I could have sold my house, made a nice little profit, and gone right back to California or gone right back to Florida or something of that nature. But I chose to stay because I wanted to honor Martha Ann's legacy, but I also wanted to be part of the rebuilding of a city that I love.
So you've been there almost 20 years, and I'm sure you go out from time to time exploring. What's the last interesting thing you saw, you learned about New Orleans?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question to answer because I think I know a lot about New Orleans.
I mean, it could be even a coffee shop that has cats. Like anything interesting thing. Anything stand out for you?
I think it's always learning about the culinary scene here is enormous, and it's a very important part of the culture. And I think that is always something that we, as natives, residents, 365 days a year, that is something that is still an adventure for us, just going to a new restaurant that's popular, that's got amazing food, and so on and so forth. So, I think that's always something. And then, just being able to support the neighborhood businesses, and there's always new little businesses opening, whether you're talking up on Magazine Street or some things along St. Charles or down in the Central Business District in the French Quarter, even Marigny and Bywater. There's little commercial corridors virtually in every neighborhood. And so, there's constantly a new little shop to go check out. And it's important, I think, because it is such a small city and such a tight-knit community, I think the support local business emphasis is really a reality here.
You can feel it. Even the properties that you're talking about, that they're, where they're located in relation to different businesses and mom and pop owned shops. I think it's great, Brett, that to do your job better, you have to go find restaurants. But
yes.
when you think about it, because you need to tell people, hey, I tried this one, over on 2nd Street, this one over on 47th Street, I think that's kind of fun that you get to do that.
Well, and it's always, like I said, there's a lot to learn about this city. And so that's something when you, particularly, and I've worked over my career, I've worked with a large number of people moving here, relocating here from other cities. And, to be able to share that wealth of knowledge, not just about the architectural styles and the history and so on and so forth, but also, you want to go out to dinner at sort of an institution restaurant tonight, here are 6 options. Yep. You want to go to some place that's new and very vibrant and hot at the moment, here are 5 options. Here, you want to do some sightseeing, you should, this is where you're staying. This is all within walking distance of you, of where you're staying. So, go check this out. Go check that out. And, because there is such a uniqueness to the makeup of our neighborhoods, that there's a little bit of something no matter where you go.
Love it. What's the best way if somebody maybe is thinking of relocating or just wants to learn more about the collection? How do they find you?
My cell phone is, I try to answer my phone all the time. I'm much better with answering my phone than I am with answering texts because I spend so much of my time of every day in my car driving, and answering texts are not always the easiest thing to do. And a lot of times, if I'm on the run for a while, I may read a text at a stoplight, but I may forget about it when I stop 5 hours later, and get out of my car finally for the day. But my email is very simple. It's my first name, which is Brett with 2 T's at WCNOLA. That's Water Cat Nancy Operation Larry Apple.com.
And that is the website for the collection as well, right?
WCNOLA, yes, is the collection's website, correct.
Final thought here. I love the way that the properties are displayed on the website. It's very personal feeling. You go to some real estate websites, they import, some of the data from MLS or wherever it is. This is charming. And it doesn't matter whether the property is $300K or it's 1.2 mil. It's got that very warm feel. And I think it really echoes what New Orleans is all about and seeing the way the properties are featured on the website. So I had to share that because that's what's drawn me in today. You and looking at the way it's presented on the website.
Well, so when you first go to the website, that circular object that you see, that circular graphic, that's a soffit. That's a decorative item that is oftentimes, if you look closely at the front porches of historic homes, you'll see those in the ceiling. Those are actually sources of ventilation for the attic.
Wow!
And so that's one of the types of soffits that are available that you see frequently on the historic homes here. And I think the other thing is because we are a small local boutique firm, we wanted our website to have a very New Orleans feel, which based on what you just said, it does.
Yeah.
That was an important part of it. And one of the tabs there is we have a resource guide, and it's local companies and local businesses and local contractors and things like that we've worked with, that we know, that we've vetted, and I'm often, because I'm kind of the contact person for the business side of our company in terms of, being the broker. So I get a lot of solicitations for people who want to put things on our website, but they're not local. And so, my response to them is that, our website, our resource tab is a resource of local businesses. Your business in Arizona isn't something that, we're promoting for our clients, for people who need access to resources here.
Love it. And thank you for explaining what that emblem was when you log on to the website. I wondered. It's almost as if you're reading my mind. Thank you so much for being here today, Brett. And our Diamond of the Decade learned so much. It definitely brought up my affection for New Orleans, and definitely looking forward next time we get a chance to get together.
Absolutely. You all come down and visit anytime.
Meet you for a cup of coffee on, I'm trying to think of what street you said.
We can meet on Magazine Street. We can meet pretty much everywhere because, coffee is a big thing here.
Yeah.
I buy my coffee for my house from a family-owned, third-generation family-owned coffee company, roasting company in Bywater.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's got to be some of the best coffee ever.
It's great coffee.
Yeah, it's, you know what, like they used to say, when your grandmother cooks, the love she puts in, I believe what we're saying there, it's the energy that you put into something and it just makes it taste better. And the energy that you put into, this real estate collection, you can feel it. You can. Thank you so much, Brett.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Same. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.